All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Another session within the Data Careers Demystified session that we're doing for unlocking data careers. So my name is Blaine Horner. Hi, nice to meet you. And thanks for joining so much. So just some quick housekeeping. We're going to be using the Q&A function today for the facilitation of questions. If you want to ask your questions as the speakers are answering our questions and going throughout the day, please just go ahead and drop those in as soon as you have them, and we'll either circle back around to them at the end or try to incorporate them within the responses. So just a reminder for everyone, Unlocking Data Careers is an Alberta workforce development program that is supported by the government of Alberta. Thank you so much for that. Our purpose and mandate is to educate and upskill people into data careers within Alberta, focusing on the underemployed, unemployed, and those transitioning into new fields, as well as those looking to get into data. So yeah, that's us. We're also going to be launching the dates for our 5-day course delivery, which will happen at the end of August and within September later this week. And we have also selected a vendor for our online learning platform, which we're excited to announce in the coming weeks as well. So please just keep an eye on your email, and we'll be sure to get those all sorted for you. So we have two brilliant speakers here today for us. We have Sonia Utting. She is a Calgary-based data professional with over 20 years experience in data quality, master data management, and data visualization. She is currently working as a data quality specialist at Suncor, and she has built her career across major energy infrastructure organizations, including Ovintiv, TransCanada, and Devon Energy. So hi, Sonia. Thanks so much for joining us. And then we also have joining us today is Heidi-Lynne Balasch. Heidi-Lynne previously worked as an Upstream Energy Consultant and is working on data transformation projects across the energy sector. Before working as an Upstream Energy Consultant, she spent over a decade with a major international oil company, managing global team responsibility for deploying drilling and completion software across the company's operations. So we're very excited to have her. She is quite the get, as is Sonia. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. So jumping right in, Sonia, you graduated with a geography degree. Did you expect yourself to be working in data management, or did that just kind of happen organically throughout your career?
Oh, yeah, I definitely had no idea I would ever be working in something like data management. I don't think I even knew it existed. I knew about, doctors and nurses and lawyers, that kind of thing. But I started in geography because I'm an outdoorsy person, and I like learning about the world as well as geomorphology, that kind of stuff. So I thought I would be working more in something to do with environmental science, but we all take twists and turns in our career, and I eventually ended up working in data. Yeah, so do you want me to start talking about my background, Wayne?
Yeah,
Or
how did you get from geography degree to senior data quality at Suncor?
yeah, so I did my degree a long time ago, and I did geography again because I liked being outdoors, and I managed to get a job that was relevant to my degree when I first started. It was a GIS and environmental company, but did very little environmental work. And then the GIS work, which stands for Geographic Information Systems, we weren't doing much analysis, and I was getting paid almost minimum wage for quite a while. So I started to look at other fields. And an older friend of mine, who I really respected, had said, if you can learn Oracle, you can buy your ticket to the future. And I love the sound of that. And it also seemed quite accessible because there were some courses at SAIT on relational database management and SQL and coding. So I did that in the evening. And then I did something that I'd really recommend if you want to sort of pivot your career. I managed to apply those skills that I was learning in the job that I already had, because we had just acquired Oracle and Esri's spatial data engine, SDE. So I managed to get those skills in my job that I had, and then that gave me enough, to beef up my resume, and I was able to get a job with the city of Calgary. And there, I worked as an Oracle DBA for about 5 years, and I transitioned there also to the data warehouse team, learned from Kimball about data modeling, and also took some more courses in being a business analyst. And then at one point, the oil and gas industry was really booming, and I thought I wanted to have a piece of that too. So I ended up transitioning over to Devon, and my role was business facing, kind of between IT and the business, so business facing. And I supported applications that had data in the back end. And then that was around the time where companies started to realize the risk and the huge impact that poor data quality has. So they started up some projects in data quality. And because of my history, I was usually involved in those types of projects. So master data, that was for unstructured and structured data, as well as data quality projects. And then from there, I just always seemed to keep going back to that data quality or master data role. I switched to TransCanada, and then Ovintiv, which was then in Canada, and then a consulting company called Lixar. And now I find myself back at, or not back, but now back in oil and gas at Suncor as a senior data advisor. And now my role is I work with subject matter experts in different parts of the business. I help them identify pain points that they're having, caused by poor data quality. Yep. Work to identify those issues in the back end in the database, and then track them on a dashboard, and then work with them through their journey to remediate those issues and improve the data quality. So yeah, it was kind of a
big role.
I definitely did not expect. To be honest, in university, I hated computers. I just took GIS because people were saying you needed some computer courses to get a job, and it did help. So although I don't work in Oracle anymore so much, but those skills like SQL, it's kind of changed from Oracle Toad to SQL Server, and then Databricks and Snowflake. So those underlying principles, learning how to query data, as well as just understanding how data works, as well as getting to know some of the pitfalls of sharing data across different applications, that kind of thing has helped me along the way.
Yeah, it sounds like really dynamic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And so Heidi-Lynne, I know from your background you could have really used a Sonia during your time at a major IOC doing global software development. So how did so like a brief history on your background for us, and then if you could also just like kind of weave in how like data governance and data quality really guided your time in your role as a global software development.
Sure. So thank you for having me. I'm super happy to be here to talk about this topic and share my experiences. So my background is I'm a petroleum engineer. I spent most of my early career as a drilling engineer. So I worked in operations, I worked on land, I worked offshore drilling rigs. And then I moved into the office and I worked as a drilling engineer, so planning wells, with data from previous wells that we drilled and geological information and the earth model. And then I moved on to being responsible for the data and software for our business units globally. So in that, we actually purchased software and we developed software, and we did data management and data migration projects. So I've had kind of I've touched data my whole career. Most of it is around data governance and also being the end user of data, or the person that wants to get the most value to make decisions out of that data. So around the concept of data governance, just sort of a quick refresh. That's really, data governance is really how data is created, how it's stored, how it's shared, how it's managed, how it's retired. So sort of the policies and standards around what we do with the data. It's also encompasses the roles and responsibilities for people who work with data. So who can change data, who manages that data, who's accountable for it. also encompasses the processes. So really how data is monitored, data quality, how are people measured on compliance, or how is data assessed for compliance? And then what sort of technology can be used with that data? So that's kind of the framework of data governance, and that's where my sort of experience came through. So it really wasn't a straight line. So if we go back to sort of how I started as a drilling engineer, and I kind of quickly realized a lot of my time was either entering data or trying to use data or reconcile data. So, you know, we had a lot of different information that we collect on rigs, and we use that information to plan the next well, combine it with other information. And a lot of times the data didn't match, or it didn't make sense. So you had to kind of be a little data detective and figure out what the source of truth was, where the quality problems were, and sort of put that all together to sort of tell a story and use that data to make predictions or plan the next operation. So that sort of became even more amplified, that data wrangling piece, that data reconciliation piece, when I started in the role of global software deployment and development. So it's one thing to sort of wrangle your data in a small group or one business unit, but if you are in a large organization, you have several business units that might have different data repositories, different processes, different technology touching that data. And it really becomes tricky if you're trying to have roll up everything at a global level. So you're trying to figure out how many wells you drilled. You're trying to figure out how long it took you to drill a certain formation. And if your data is not quality, if it's not consistent, if it's not managed well, it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to get the value out of the data. So, you know, spend a lot more time on these sort of the lower value tasks, wrangling that data, rather than making data-driven decisions, which was sort of the ultimate goal when we were rolling out technology. So, you know, quickly found that we had to pay a lot more attention to data, not less so, in combination with the technology we were using to collect and use the data. So, you know, as I moved forward and pivoted my career even further to helping companies with their technology implementations, developing software, technology projects, I started seeing things less as a siloed technology project, but more of a data and technology project. So really thinking about the time that we needed to make sure we had quality data, understanding who was responsible for that data, understanding the repositories the data was coming from, and how we'd maintain data integrity to get the biggest value out of the technology that we were implementing. So it's again, it evolved it started very simpler in my career and sort of got to a big wider perspective of the importance and consistency required for implementations.
Yeah, definitely. Because if the bad data in equals bad data out, so it's always really important. So Sonia, in your role at Suncor, kind of like, how do you make sure that you're getting all of the best data to people like Heidi-Lynne who are overseeing these kind of like global programs? Like, what is your kind of work week look like when it comes to that kind of facilitation?
Well, when it comes to my day-to-day stuff, I guess I often work with the subject matter expert in a business area to identify any issues they're having with their data. They're usually the ones that have that they have the pulse on what's really going on. But they often work with the data through an application. So through different screens, it might be SAP or WellView or something like that, but they don't get a chance to see what the data looks like in the tables or the raw data. So sometimes they can help me kind of bridge that gap between where the data that they're working with is and the data in the database. But a lot of the times I have to kind of be a detective and figure out like what system it's in, which tables, like how to build the relationships between the tables, and then how to query the tables. And then I usually will do some sort of profiling and some analysis to see what's going on, try and find some patterns, start building some queries, and then I kind of go back and forth with the subject matter expert and say, this, because they might need to tell me which fields matter and which status is, that kind of thing, because there might be a lot of junk in there that we don't care about.
Mhm.
They can tell me which is the stuff that's actually of value and that's important. And then I start, building my queries in SQL, used to be Databricks, now we've moved to Snowflake. And then I present those results in a dashboard, and then I work with them kind of along the way further. It's an iterative approach where they see the results and then they say, oh, well, we don't want to include stuff before 1990 or something. Like they see all the really bad data and like, well, we don't want to go back that far now, or maybe they do. And then maybe there's some discussion about what's the source of truth, which data can we really trust. And then, yeah, like Heidi had alluded to before, when there are multiple parties using the system, that's usually when you see more of a breakdown, because they might have different uses for the data. So trying to find out what parties or what stakeholders are involved as well, so that you can look at what processes are broken. Usually, if the data is really bad, it's something to do with a break in the way things are being done. It's not usually ever trying to find people at fault. It's usually just trying to figure out what could be done better.
Yeah, and sometimes people are just told the wrong training, like don't enter the data if you don't need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you kind of mentioned on this, it's a bit detective, it's a bit artistry and kind of determining what the data is and how to pull out those queries. And so, what does like bad data look like in practice? Can you give like an example to the audience about, when you've walked into some bad data and kind of what did you have to do about it?
Well, this one example that I'm thinking of, and Heidi, I think, had a similar experience too, was an application where one group that was using the application used a certain set of data within the application, and they were filling that in just fine and taking care of their business, but they had no idea that there was another business group using the same application for a totally different purpose. So they came back and said, there's hardly any Latin longs in here. And according to the score, because when we do a data quality score, we kind of include, all the rules. And if one record fails any one of those rules, that record's counted as a fail. So it rolled up to this terrible score, like 2% or something. And then luckily there was a director on the on the drilling side where they weren't filling in all this information, who was amazing. Some people will really get freaked out by a bad score or bad data quality, and they don't want to be caught, put to blame or whatever, but she just kind of took it on, and then we ended up having meetings between the two different groups, and then it was just about having communication between the two parties to change the way things were going forward, and then also bringing in the vendor to help populate some of that data that was missing, because they had the data that just hadn't been populating it. So yeah, I'd say bad data sometimes looks like that. There's a breakdown in the process of the communication, and there's just missing big chunks. Yep. I've also seen migration projects where the data that's been brought in, it might have weird things. It hasn't been archived properly, but it might say, do not use, lowercase, do not use, ne pas utiliser, DNU, like a bunch of different ways of saying don't use.
Yeah.
And free text fields are usually the most wildly varying, I guess.
From my standpoint as a mainly an operations person, free text fields are nowhere I want to be. You have to select the ones you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so So now we've identified that you're an artist when it comes to prompt engineering and SQLs. You're also kind of a storyteller with the data and a detective. But then now you've also added in this like additional part of your role, which is like communications mediator and like bridging point between different kind of sets, which is
Yeah,
it's a very
yeah,
dynamic
definitely.
role.
Yeah, and you're kind of working with each project is different, so it's always you have to be flexible,
Yeah.
and you have to be someone that just takes it on and tries to figure it out. So you have to kind of use what means you can to figure things out, ask who you can, and
Yeah.
people they might be called you might hope for a certain role or a certain type of advisor, but often they're not there, so you just have to figure it out yourself. So working with kind of vague directions,
Yeah.
being a bit of a detective, and definitely more and more working with people. I have seen people on my team that had less skills in SQL, but using an internal copilot or internal AI tool that we have, they've just been able to really rapidly scale up,
Yeah.
get much better at it. So yeah, people skills, communication skills are huge. And your data quality, you're always defending not only the value of doing data quality work, but also defending the fact that, this is not here to make you lose your job or something. This is here to, like, when you go to the
Improve.
doctor and you find
Yeah.
out you need to eat less saturated fats or something, like
Yeah.
you just want to get those metrics so that you can improve and
Yeah, of
healthier.
course. So, so Heidi-Lynne, kind of like building off what Sonia was talking about in her day-to-day, which is like really building out kind of what everyone needs and getting good data to deploy these projects. Lowering your saturated fats to improve your cholesterol. Kind of like in your previous work, what's kind of happened when the data that you've received wasn't ready or clean enough? Like, what did the governance failure or the data quality failure like kind of like actually cost?
Yeah,
For
good.
your side of things?
Super good question. And I think that question really comes back to data governance for me. So just a little bit of a story of what we're doing with this global software implementation. So we were implementing a fairly standard well planning and operational reporting software for wells. And we had it all. We had really experienced people, we had smart people, we had a clear scope, we had some good technology, we had leadership support. We had all the makings of a great project. And on paper, it really should have been straightforward. We were giving the organization or rolling out a tool for the organization that, would be a better way to capture data and plan wells. And what we quickly encountered were some inconsistencies, and it wasn't really bad data, it was just different data. So when you have different parts of the organization operating in different ways, they have different ways of capturing data and different data definitions. So one of the things we ran into was different business units captured wellbore information differently. So classifying a wellbore or a well in different ways. So some organizations, this was a long time ago, there's a lot more standards thanks to PPDM actually in this space, but some organizations would say that a well with some multilaterals, so some different legs, was a single well. And other organizations would say, no, if you had a well, they would say each leg was an additional well. So you just in definition of number of wells, it got complicated. So one organization might have a well with 3 laterals and call that one well. Another organization might call that 4 wells. So even in just counting the number of wells was a tricky exercise. So that sounds pretty straightforward when you talk about it, but when you've got a bunch of different business units capturing that data in different ways, measuring different things, how long it takes to drill one of those wells, how long it takes to drill one of those legs. There's a bunch of metrics and benchmarking and processes that go along with that data. And so to sort of change how or standardize how that data is collected and used is a big job. It's you have to change people's processes, you have to change benchmarking, and you have to change how people work. So that takes a lot of retraining, a lot of effort, and a lot of agreement. And that really goes down to data governance. Who has the authority to make those decisions? Who has the authority to change something if we deem it not to be fit for purpose, or the environment has changed? Maybe we have a new way of doing something that we haven't even accounted for, and we're collecting new type of data. Who has the authority to make the policies and the standard operating practices around that? So that all lent itself into data governance, and it was kind of that project that really drove a new framework from a global perspective of that data governance. So what did it cost us? I mean, it cost us a lot of learning. It cost us a lot of communication. So those are positive costs, I would say. But also these types of things can really delay a project. So you think you're just going to implement some technology, but actually you have to consider all the pieces around data governance to have that technology be implemented smoothly and be able to use the results of it. So I would say it takes time to have things aligned, and then it actually takes time for the data migration piece. If you're going to change the way you capture data or the way you organize it, you're going to have some efforts and some diligence around migrating that data so it's consistent. So really, you think you're going to spend a lot of time training people on the new system, using all the cool reports that come from that software. But a lot of the time we spent talking about the data and how to be consistent globally.
Yeah.
So,
the bad input of not having the right data results in time delays, extra spend, and then a lot of meetings about meetings, it sounds like.
Exactly. And a lot of policies that have to be written and org charts that are created or amended.
Yeah, so especially like if you're heading into like a smaller, medium-sized business, these are the kind of the issues you're going to face when you're going to be, if you're fresh and starting out on a new data path, where maybe an organization is, now has all this data and wants to compute it and utilize it. You're going to run into a lot of these issues, which I think you were running into at that major IOC back in the day, because you were leading the charge on this new project, weren't you?
Yeah, and I actually was, I would say I was probably pretty naive on how much diversity there was in our work processes. And, it was a global organization. So, 20 business units. And sometimes these business units were legacy from other companies that were purchased. So, there's a lot of habits and methodology that can be different across an organization.
Definitely. And so I think this is a kind of a good transition point to bring it to modern day. Is what's the AI angle here? So everyone's talking about AI right now. It's in the news. It's on our social feeds. It's producing images and videos that are fooling all of us. So you're both working at the intersection of data and technology. What does the AI conversation look like from like where you are currently? Like, do you believe it's going to create data jobs? It's going to eliminate data jobs, or is it just going to change the way that they're working right now? So Sonia, where are you sitting right now?
So right now I'm seeing it be a helpful tool for me. It's really let me up level some of my SQL code. We have a rule that you can't let AI make any decisions for you. So very much using it as a helper to try and get us moving faster, help me find things. I don't know how many times I look for a chat in Teams or an email and I can't find it, or a file or a SharePoint file, and it has been really helpful that way. So so far just using it as a tool. I think that it's important to learn about AI so that you can help other people navigate it. There are some people that are they're just at different levels. So you might be one of those people that can help them use it in a useful way, or help them be a bit less afraid to help navigate it, maybe help even identify some places where it could be helpful. You could be kind of someone that can help the company navigate this this journey. So far, I know that it's really, really scary and there's some terrible stuff in the news. I do listen to some podcasts that make my heart rate race sometimes, but so far I'm just I'm seeing it being a very helpful tool and help people get a really long way in analysis, finding things, figuring out how to do things as well. Like you say you don't know how to do something, you can get answers so quickly now. Even if you're looking for a job, I think I would use it that way too. And like maybe if you find a profile on LinkedIn or a job posting, something that you want to do, you could ask, what would be some interview questions if I were to get this job? Like just use it as a helpful tool for yourself. And I think you can still get a long way.
Yeah. And I think too, a good use of AI would be, here are my current skill sets, here are the job description requirements. What does that educational program look like? And where do I need to fill in the gaps? Yeah. So Heidi-Lynne, what about for yourself? Where you are right now, kind of where do you see AI?
So I think AI will be additive, basically. I think it's already having an impact where it's really improving, doing some automated work, some repetitive tasks can be done very quickly by AI. And that's a good thing. Who wants to do all of that sort of manual work when AI can identify things very quickly, clean up data very quickly, sort of doing the boring stuff? I think it will shift jobs. We will be doing more decision making, doing jobs that AI can't quite do, jobs that require context, require subject matter expertise in a particular domain. So I think it can be a helpful thought partner for that. It can, even guide some conversations around governance and standards. I think that, there's a lot of room there. I really don't see, I think the fear of AI replacing jobs is true, but I think it will also create jobs. So I read a thing on LinkedIn today, which I thought was super interesting. And so I'm going to quote it verbatim. But here's the quote. "I foresee massive unemployment among the ranks of American programmers, system analysts, and software engineers." Now that sounds recent. That was written in 1992. And we've only seen an increase. So that was a comment from a fellow who wrote a book, Ed Jordan, and he was really worried about the globalization impact on workers, and it didn't happen. He actually subsequently wrote a book to talk about why his prediction was wrong, which I thought was interesting. So I think what I'm trying to say is we don't know what we don't know right now. AI is changing the way we do work, and it's changing the work we do. So it's not really the question of how much AI will automate, but and how many jobs it'll remove. It's kind of like, how will work change, and how are we going to do our work with AI? And I think the key outcome for that, from my perspective, is we should all be thinking about how to use AI, because I don't think AI will replace a bunch of people necessarily, but it'll replace people that aren't using AI. So we have to kind of lean into that, start using it, start understanding it, and be creative in ways that it can augment our skills or reduce our workload for the menial things and create sort of new opportunities. So I would really lean into it. Of course, there's risks, you have to be careful, but I think it's just really going to transform how we work, and there's going to be a whole new set of things that we do as humans that we haven't explored yet because of AI. So
yeah, definitely. And when I was conducting the research for this particular program, a lot of the people that I spoke to kind of echoed the same sentiment, where they're like, it's gonna change the way we need to do, but it's gonna empower people to kind of go faster and go a bit longer. But what was really interesting is that a lot of people said that you still need to understand the basic understanding of what you're getting AI to do for you. In the same way that Sonia said that, at her place of employment, they're not allowed to let AI make decisions for them. They have to understand what the output is, be able to understand, be able to have a business reference for what it was outputting, so that they could then make an informed decision and implement based on facts. So I think that's always important to remember. So we're getting. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said said yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So kind of getting back into non-technical backgrounds, because not everyone watching this is going to have a technical background. Sonia, you've worked with a lot of people in this field. How often do you see people coming in from completely non-technical backgrounds, and like how do they tend to do it, or how do they tend to do, I should say?
I've seen some huge successes. A PM that came in recently who she'd been on mat leave, and she hadn't really been working in data, but she was so good at working with people, and she's a high energy person and great communicator, and she was more on the PM side. So and it was for a new AI tool, and she was a fantastic success at sharing that and learning, coming up to speed on the value of data. And so, she did a great job. I've seen people come into data, like, I feel like data is sort of like mortar. It's in so many different careers already. Like if you're an accountant, you've already been working for data for years, and engineers and geologists and geophysicists, I've seen them switch to data careers during our frequent downturns in oil and gas. We have a friend across the street, a mutual dog walker, who he was a navigator on a Russian cargo ship, and he's a data analyst now. Like, I think if you are the type of person, my work at least tends to be a bit more introverted. I'm working on a computer, I love problem solving, trying to put together puzzles, that kind of thing. But there are so many different roles on a data project. There's the people that work with the data hands-on, that are like kind of going in the weeds and details, and you do have to have a lot of perseverance because of the challenges with matching different data sets and things. But then you need those leaders that can make it sound interesting to other people, and that get people excited about it, and those people are so important too. So there's such a range of different skill sets and personality types, as well as job backgrounds, that I think are of value. And I think it's already such a big part of our lives, data. It's in every application we use, everything we do every day. So a lot of people have more experience than they might even realize at first.
Yeah, definitely. I think I like your analogy where data is like mortar, it's just around everything and holds it all together,
Yeah.
So Heidi-Lynne, like, building off what Sonia says, what are the skills from completely outside data that actually translate better than people expect? Like, what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, so again, building on what Sonia said, it is really the mortar. So you're using data in different aspects of your life and your current job. Very transferable things, like if you're doing work in inventory, if you're doing scheduling, if you're managing supply chains, if you're predicting services or scheduling staffing. I think that it's or tracking time, working with data, and you're using that data to make decisions. That's the way I'd really look at it. And you need quality data to make those decisions. So if we can think of sort of things in your life that you're already doing in your current job, or even in your recreational activities or kids activities that are transferable, and you can sort of think of how that could be applied in a work environment. I also think that we talked about it a little bit, and it all still needs to be highlighted. Sonia really talked about the importance of communication. So the soft skills are super important. So communication, being organized, showing up on time, being responsive, those skills that are outside the data, but super important for data. And it's really half the battle. If you can get in a job, you might not know that much about the data or the workflows, but you've got those skills to figure it out, because you're good at communicating with people, you're good at asking questions, you're good at being responsive. Those things go a long way and can get you up to speed very quickly. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, a curious self-starter who loves to problem solve.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great, are great personal, skills that are going to help you with this, with a data career. So we do have a question from Jude. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When a bad data incident is reported, duplicated, or missing records, tracing the route back to the source, does it come under data governance, data profiling, quality process? So yeah, what happens when bad data is reported?
Yeah, so I'd say it's bit of a bit of governance, and but also a bit of it could be all of those things. Like if there's data governance helps you put in a framework so that you can manage your data as an asset. So you might have standards around how the data is entered or managed, as well as security policies, that kind of thing. So that will really help reduce the chance of data quality problems, but things can still sneak in there. And we try and we track the data quality issues, but then we let the people that manage that data update it and fix it. And what was the, oh, so what, yeah, so
Yeah,
basically
tracing
if
it
it's
back to the root cause.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we might also, if it's a one-off thing, then it's probably just an error. If you are seeing a pattern happening, then it might be more of a process issue, and then you need to go back and work with the application owners or the business itself. How are they juggling tasks between different people? Does there need to be more communication, or is there something on the application side when they're entering the data that needs to be fixed?
Yeah.
Or is it an integration problem? That's very common too. If data is flowing from one system like Workday to SAP or something else, is there a breakdown in that integration? So kind of an analysis, depends how big of a problem it is, and then trying to figure out if it's process, technology, or your standards.
Yeah, great. So Heidi, then we got another question. I think this one's good for you, but Sonia, you can also answer as well. What certifications or AI skills would people with non-technical backgrounds need for governance roles?
Good question. I would just start with a quick search on data governance on the normal learning platforms like Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. And I would start there. And I would also start with domain specific. So it depends what industry you're in, looking for some courses directed towards that domain. And I would also, if you're beginning a job, investigate that data governance in your current role, what team is responsible for it, where's the documentation, who's the owner of certain aspects of data governance. So I'd really learn in your organization where it's managed, who's doing the work, and ask for advice on how you might get trained within the group or recommend some external courses.
Yeah. And I would also say enroll for the Unlocking Data Careers 5-day course where we're going to have a full day on data governance.
Yes, thank you for stating the obvious, Blaine.
And so Sonia, what about yourself? What
Thank
kind
you.
of certifications or AI skills would people with non-technical backgrounds need to excel in governance? Kind of what do you think they could strive for? What's the low-hanging fruit on the training?
Like Heidi said, I totally agree with starting where you are. If you can kind of move laterally, or if you can get the experience in the job that you have, that is the ideal thing. Experiencing that context, seeing if you actually like it, and and also getting that experience so that you can see if you can take it elsewhere if you want to go elsewhere. That's ideal. I did send you a list of a few resources, Blaine. There's PPDM, of course, this course coming up, and then there's this gigantic book called the DAMA. It's just more of a reference about data governance. There's some other courses through TWDI that we used to do at work. Yep. And then there's some free free ones as well. Like Microsoft has some really good starter courses on AI and as well as lots of other things. And then there's the top two are more technical platforms, but you can take some courses on there too. That would be more for the SQL type skills or understanding the cloud environment and AI, machine learning, that kind of thing. But you could do some free courses on there. There's a Claude course as well you can do. So there's tons of training. There are some really, really expensive programs out there that I haven't taken. I do have a colleague that took one. She said if she was already working, she would try and train, within her company. If she wanted to completely switch industries, and she would consider it. But yeah, the training courses range from completely free all the way up to like a lot of money. I don't think you need to do that though. I think you can just sort of start where you are and take advantage of some free resources, get experience in your job, volunteering maybe, that kind of thing.
Yeah. This is now the second time a Databricks course has come up on in one of these webinars. So everyone on the chat, go experience Databricks. So I suppose Databricks is kind of the function, and the data would be the mortar around it in the brick. So yeah. So do we have any other questions today from the chat? Just feel free to pop them in. So just about that 5-day intensive that we're going to be doing, registration is going to be opening up as soon as possible. We're going to be announcing dates and locations before the end of the week, as well as more information on our online asynchronous learning, which will allow you to take it at your own pace for those of you who may be in full-time work or have other responsibilities outside of that. Okay, so now we have another question from Jason. How do you judge when data or analytics or analysis results by AI are in that? Sorry, how can you judge if the data and analysis results by AI can be trusted? Like in the oil industry, many aspects cannot tolerate fault. It can cause serious consequences if AI is wrong. So now, in the news, Ford is rehiring experienced engineers because AI failed in their quality checks. So how can you judge when the data analysis by AI is truthful and trustworthy?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think it sheds light on what's going on in AI right now. AI should be used responsibly by people who understand the problems they're trying to solve. There should also be transparency in how your model is doing the calculations. So everything you should be able to trace how the analysis was done. And if you cannot, you shouldn't be using, I guess you could say, a black box. You should be able to go back and reference how those calculations were done and be able to reproduce them or check them. So AI should be able to reason through what data it used, how it did the calculation, and how it got to the result. If it cannot, then I would be very skeptical of that model or what you're using. And also, it also speaks to you have to have people in the loop that understand the data that is being used and the analysis.
And I think, Sonia, this also is a good point. This also kind of ties into what you're doing, which is SQL prompts for data. So would you also say that like understanding how to do those prompts and then having AI kind of tell you how it did it, would you say that's also a good way to determine trustworthiness?
Yeah, I think it can do, it's funny because it can do such amazing things and then it can get some simple things wrong. So I would always, I think you still need a person there that knows what they're doing to check the results, see what's going on. I have used it before where it just took out a piece of my query that was something that I needed in there. So yeah, you definitely need to validate it. I think there was even a lawyer in the news, wasn't there, recently, that got in trouble for in her closing statements. She used some cases that AI had generated, so she got in big trouble. Like I would never trust what it says alone, but it just can help you maybe get things going faster.
Yeah.
And sometimes the results I don't know, a hint is just how confident and how you can just, there's just clues in there that make it look a bit AI-ish.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
it can
think
sound, that's another downside. It sounds so confident when it gives you the answer. It doesn't. So yeah, you have to be careful.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
context
definitely.
is super important for AI. So if it doesn't have the right context, like just an example of, if I'm looking for a depth of a well, you might have depth in 6 different systems in an oil company, and one might be in the financial system. That's not the system of record for well depth. You're going to have it in a much more reliable place, but AI might not know that. So you have to have AI used in the correct way to get the information it needs to do the analysis, and it takes that context and people who understand context to create the models. So yeah, just be really aware of that.
Yeah. I think kind of an important lesson when it comes to trustworthiness of AI is we have to put ourselves in the shoes of our statistics and physics teachers. If the student is not showing their work, then they don't understand the concepts or how they got to that result. And so you need to ask AI to show its work so that you can be confident in what it is. I think is kind of a good learned lesson from that. So you can't just say what the answer is. You have to be able to show that you've been thinking through the processes to get to that answer.
Yeah.
So we have another question here. In real projects, which is usually the hardest challenge? Data quality, data integrity, or user adoption?
There's well,
I can think
just
of
find the results. Yeah, a lot of times the data itself is difficult, and I've, matching different data sets, that can be extremely difficult sometimes. I've also heard data scientists too say they have a hard time even getting to the data science part because they have to do so much work, getting good data, getting enough of it too. Adoption, yeah, that's an important piece too, the change management and user adoption as well.
Yeah. Heidi-Lynne, I feel like
my
you have
world
a
is always
story
data
about
quality,
adoption.
so I feel like that's the biggest problem.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think,
think
Heidi?
this is a great question, actually, and I'm having trouble choosing. It's I don't know. I think they all present challenges in different projects, and in one project, maybe one could be weighted more than the other. So I think they're all big challenges for sure. It just depends where your starting point is, right? So if you're
Yeah, so Trudy said in the chat that each of these kind of relates to data trust. So would you say that in real projects, the hardest challenge is the education and the development of trust within all the pieces of within the 3 legs that build the stool to trust it? Would you say that's kind of the inception, that's kind of the origin point?
It is really, yeah, that is really critical. I'd say on any project, if a user uses it and gets the wrong answer, they might be forgiving and initially as you're working on it, but depending on the user, but if they get the wrong answer, then they stop trusting the results, and that goes for any kind of KPIs and answers that they're getting from their data.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we have another question here from Jason. So how to avoid verifying the results by AI consumes more time and effort than just to work it out by yourself. So yeah, what would you say to that? Would you say that whilst AI can help people run faster, do you think that there's some applications or processes that maybe it's just easier to do it yourself? Have you run into that within like the systems you're using?
Yeah, I think it can be a problem, meaning you spend more time verifying the results than actually working the problem. But what I think is important is to spend the time up front. So you spend the time up front, do a small test, small pilot with a smaller scope, and trust or verify the process, audit the process. And then once you have confidence in that pilot, then you can scale. And that's where the power really comes, is scaling. And you can use AI to scale as well. You can use agents. So to me, getting it right, spending the time up front with the data, the model, the context, that should take the time. I think what happens is you get too excited about the technology, you want to use it, you want to try it, you want to test it, and then it doesn't quite work, and you spend a lot of time unraveling it. I think if you spend more time up front, develop something that works, develop something that you understand, that you can audit, then you can scale it.
Yeah.
Kind of like we want to.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we don't want to forget how to think or how to solve those problems too. Like if we rely on it too much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting back to your point, Heidi-Lynne, it's like building that strong foundation before kind of like starting to put floors on top of it. You know, start with a 3-story building before you go for 100, because you're going to learn a lot on that 3-story building. That's for sure. So yeah, well, thank you both for joining us today, and thank you for everyone for attending, and for those who are going to be watching back online. We really appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us today. As I've mentioned a couple times, the dates and times and locations for our 5-day intensive course, as well as our registration, will be launching within the next couple of weeks. The dates and times will come first, and the registration will come afterwards. And then also the online portion, we're going to be sharing more information about that shortly, so that you can get involved with some asynchronous self-guided training. So that'll be great. And so yeah, thank you everyone for coming today. And if you have any questions or want some follow-up to anything that we discussed today, you can reach out to us at udc@ppdm.org, and we will get back to you. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. And just before we leave, I actually have a bunch of links that I sourced prior to this call. So this is for a lot of things. This is for careers, it's for training, it's for events, it's for data. So I put together my favorite links here.
Great.
I'm just going to put them in the chat.
Yeah, and I'll be sending that out in an email as well when we get the recording available for watchback as well. Oh, great.
So thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.